Jim, Pennsylvania state troopers tonight have the crash site secured, treating it for the moment as a crime scene. Yesterday afternoon, the FBI clearly taking charge of the investigation. According to people in the area, the plane was flying at a very low altitude when there was a rush of engine noise. At that time, the plane then turned and plunged at a 45-degree angle, crashing into a field which is part of a strip mining operation near the town here of Shanksville. FBI confirms there were 38 passengers and 7 crewmen on board. No survivors. There are only small pieces of debris to be found at the scene. At the crash site, there is an impact crater. It appears as a blackened pit on the edge of a green, grassy field. A key find will be the black box, the flight recorder. There are also reports the FBI is examining a 911 call originating from a passenger on the plane taken by a 911 operator at a neighboring county here in Pennsylvania. They hope, among so many other things, to find out why this hijacked plane failed to reach its target. And as you said earlier, government sources are now saying that senior administration officials told Congress they believe the plane was headed for either the White House, Camp David, or the Capitol building. Authorities here today asked anyone in the area who saw the plane in the air or going down to come forward and contribute to the investigation. As for what's going on right now, things are wrapped up for the evening and the investigation will get underway in the morning. Back to you in Atlanta.
All right, David, as we look at the crash scene there, it's a scene that people don't really understand. You've outlined, they don't really have anyone that eyewitnessed this. I had thought that earlier in the day there had been a report of someone describing what had happened as the plane came down.
Oh, yes, there were eyewitnesses, but they're calling for anyone who may have seen the plane in the air to come forward. They have the initial accounts, as we have relayed to you, that the plane appeared to have a rush of engine noise and then veer off and then down, striking the ground at a 45-degree angle. There were policemen at the scene of the crash site saying that it appeared that the plane had come down and the debris had scattered into a wooded area nearby. And again, the pieces of debris are very small. We do have some good news for you tonight, though, with a Pennsylvania connection to this horrible attack. At 7:56 p.m., a man and 2 police officers trapped in the World Trade Center were unable to get through to 911 in New York and call for help. So the man called his sister in the Pittsburgh area, who then called her local 911. They were then able to direct police in New York to their location and to their successful rescue. And to quote one 911 official here, a very positive note to a sad and tragic day.
All right, David Mattingly reporting to us there from Pennsylvania, the latest on that investigation. Now, a man who was on board one of the flights that was doomed, that flight that we're talking about in Pennsylvania, called his mother as the aircraft was being hijacked. Mark Bingham had boarded United Airlines Flight 93 in Newark, New Jersey. He called his mother in the San Francisco Bay Area just before the plane crashed near Pittsburgh.
That I love you very, very much in case I don't see you again.
I said that.
That the plane has been taken over by hijackers. And then I said, well, we love you very much too, Mark. Let me go get your mother.
I got on the phone, Mark, and he said, hi, Mom, this is Mark Bingham. Giving me his last name. And he said, I want to let you know that I love you. And I'm flying. I think he said I'm in the air. I'm calling you on the air phone of the airplane.
In his seat.
I presume so. He said, I want you to know I love you very much, and I'm calling you from the plane. We've been taken over. There are 3 men that say they have a bomb. And I said, well, who are they, Mark? And he repeated that he loved me, and he said, I don't think he said, I don't know who they are. He became distracted there as if someone was speaking to him, and he said it's something to the effect of, it's true, and then the phone went dead.
All right, and one person on one of the flights, also a man, actually had the presence of mind to phone emergency personnel from his cell phone to report, to say, we are being hijacked. Let's take a look at a night shot right now, the Manhattan skyline as it looks at this moment. Live pictures now of the skyline. You can still see dust and smoke in that area amid the lights of New York, a city that, by all accounts, will never be the same again, not just in terms of its skyline, its landscape, but in terms of the sensibilities of the people who live in it and who live in this country. Financial markets around the world have been reacting to this morning. You can imagine how the attack has unnerved global financial markets that are already fearful of recession. Asia opening today with quite a downturn. Richard Quest is in London with more on that and all the international tenants who were at this World Trade Center as well. Richard, quite a few in that enormous building where some 50,000 people would go to work every day.
Absolutely. There were some 435 tenants from around 26 countries from across the globe. There were offices from just a small suite of offices anywhere in the building to large banks that had several floors with employees. Taking a look at some of the international companies that had offices and had a presence in World Trade Center 1 and 2. There was the British company Thomson Financial, which had offices in the World Trade Center. Morgan Stanley, the largest tenant, had over 22 floors in World Trade Center 1. The company put out a statement late yesterday saying all of the businesses are functioning and will continue to function, but obviously the prayers and sympathies are with their employees. Some 3,500 people worked for Morgan Stanley at World Trade Center. Cantor Index, and a company on both sides of the Atlantic, Cantor Fitzgerald, as it's known, had 5 floors. 800 employees at least were working or had a presence in the World Trade Center. The company putting out its statement saying that over 1,000 employees employed by the two companies in the World Trade Center. The chairman saying, in a difficult, confused situation, we're doing all we can to determine the whereabouts of our colleagues. Keefe Bruyette, a brokerage specialising in banking matters, also there. Empire Blue Cross and Blue Shield, that's the US major insurance corporation. The healthcare insurance was an international corporation that had a presence in the World Trade Center. And Credit Suisse First Boston, the Swiss multinational, one of the largest in the world, the banking, investment banking, trading organizations. Not only does it have other offices within Manhattan, but had a large presence in the World Trade Center. And Oppenheimer Funds. These are just a short list, if you like, of some of the major names that had offices, some small suites, others large numbers of floors, like Morgan Stanley in the World Trade Center. Now, joining me on the line is Bob Hormats. Robert Hormats is Vice Chairman of Goldman Sachs International. Their offices are on Broad Street by the New York Stock Exchange, but not that far from the World Trade Center. Bob, thanks for joining us. First of all, let's start with Goldman Sachs, your employees, and what you can tell us about the situation.
Well, we stayed open till about 3 or 3:30 in the afternoon yesterday. Fortunately, we're fairly far away, as you know, from the Trade Center, but our prayers and our thoughts are with our friends and colleagues in other banks and institutions. Wall Street is, as you know, a pretty close-knit unit, and they're competitors, but they're also companies we cooperate with on a day-to-day basis at the same time. So we're obviously very concerned about those people and other firms that are down on Wall Street and we're in the World Trade Towers.
The size, the scale of what's taken place in terms of Wall Street, in terms of the economy, we can have no idea yet what's likely to be the effect.
No, that's right, and I think it'll take time to sink in. It's a community that, as I say, works together. We know one another. We work on a day-to-day basis with one another, and firms work on a whole lot of projects collectively and trade with one another. And there's all sorts of business going on a day-to-day basis, and it's part of a of an overall market. They're part of a market, but they're also friends and people we talk to on a day-to-day basis. So the psychological impact is going to be enormous. And the financial impact is going to be enormous. A lot of companies that have been active participants in the market will be hurt, damaged badly.
Let me just interrupt you. We're looking at new pictures now of the rubble from the scene of Lower Manhattan that have just come into CNN. These shots taken a short while ago. Bob, finally, briefly, the financial community has had words from the Federal Reserve, from the U.S. Treasury Secretary. The key now has to be to create confidence, not only that there won't be a cash shortage or a so-called credit crunch, that basically this will not do long-standing damage to the economy.
Yes, I think there are two major things that need to be done. First of all, in the United States itself, the Federal Reserve has to take action to lower interest rates further and do so very aggressively, and I believe it will. And second, from a financial point of view, we have to now realize that some additional fiscal stimulus is going to be required. There'll be more defense spending, perhaps a tax cut. The idea of utilizing the Social Security surplus to retire bonds, the so-called lockbox, is finished. Right. There's going to be a lot more fiscal stimulus to boost the economy and boost confidence. And the developed countries, the G7 particularly, have to work together to restore confidence by showing that they're working together on this. It's not just one country. It's the overall financial world that needs to have confidence restored, and the G7 leaders need to do that together.
Bob Hormats of Goldman Sachs, Vice Chairman of Goldman Sachs, many thanks indeed. Colleen, the pictures from Lower Manhattan, the latest of the rubble from the World Trade Center.
Yeah, and some astonishing pictures, Richard, as we look at these just in. We've seen windows blown out of police cars. We've actually seen cars on top of each other in that area in Lower Manhattan. These pictures just coming into us now of the search and rescue as it goes on tonight, right now as we speak. Jim?
And as you look at those scenes, there are a lot of people that want to see someone arrested, someone brought to justice or made to pay for what happened in the United States this day. But how in the world do you begin a criminal investigation into something like you've seen here? And who do you focus on as a suspect? Our David Insert takes a preliminary look at those issues.
U.S. officials say fugitive Saudi-accused terrorist Osama bin Laden's group is at the top of their list of suspects. There are good indications people with links to bin Laden may have been responsible for this attack, said one, including specific intelligence. In Afghanistan, however, where bin Laden is a guest of the Taliban government, the foreign minister told reporters, quote, "We have tried to assure the United States in any kind of way we can that Osama is not involved in these kinds of activities." One U.S. intelligence official responded angrily, calling that, quote, a lie.
I think we will soon be able to identify who the culprit is, but tonight is not the night.
Intelligence and law enforcement professionals say, though bin Laden is at the top of the list of suspects, involvement of agents of Iraqi President Saddam Hussein or of individuals associated with Palestinian groups or Hezbollah cannot be entirely ruled out yet, especially given the size and complexity of the operation.
We may find that this particular action involved actors from several different sources.
On Capitol Hill, some members said the Central Intelligence Agency needs to do a better job of infiltrating terrorist groups.
This obviously was a failure of great dimension. We had no specific warning of the United States being attacked, although people have alluded to that before. We've got to do better. We must do better.
At the Central Intelligence Agency, officials point out that no one hears of their successes, only their failures, though they concede bitterness at failing to obtain advance warning of the attacks on New York and Washington. They note CIA Director George Tenet has repeatedly warned the bin Laden group could strike the U.S. at any time. As for how to respond once culprits are found, terrorist experts were relieved to hear the White House say the bombing of Kabul was not U.S. retaliatory missiles, but apparently Afghan rebels.
This is not something that's going to be solved by a salvo of cruise missiles bouncing some rocks in Afghanistan if it turns out to be Osama bin Laden. This will be a war